It's Car Talks, where I rant, ramble, rave, and word vomit my thoughts on training, life, and fitness, and talking a little bit about squatting progressions and why I think some athletes it's okay to load them right off the bat. And this is kind of based off of a kid that I worked with a couple of years ago. At the time, he was 11, and a big kid. He could not air squat to save his life, and he could not hinge to save his life. And I know this sounds weird, what I'm about to say. It did not matter how many things we tried. Squat to a box, couldn't do it. Squat to, like just simple air squat, couldn't do it. But the moment I put a barbell, and I didn't put the barbell on the kid's back. He just kind of walked over. We had like one of those body bars in the corner of the gym, and he grabbed it and put it on his back, mimicking the older kids. And the kid dropped in the most beautiful back squat I've ever seen. And I think it's one of those things where, we have to understand what mobility is, because a lot of times, mobility is being able to be stable in those end ranges, right? Mobility and stability are kind of linked. And one of the things you see is that foam rolling will create a temporary, release in mobility. And as we learn more about fascia and what fascia is doing in the body, then we kind of understand neural dampening a little bit. And but one of the things you see with increasing mobility is that you actually have to load tissues to get into some of these end ranges. You actually have to get into some positions with weight, in that, you have to load the joint, you have to load the movement pattern. And that's what we saw with that one individual. And I've seen it now, like I said, that was about 2 years ago. I've seen it now since with a couple different kids, is that they may not be able to get a body weight squat. They may not be able to perfect a hinge, but one of the things that happens is you load them up just a little bit, not drastically. You load them up just a little bit, and the next thing you know, their strength numbers take off. And part of it is because they get just that tiny little bit of load, and it forces those tissues, and it increases their tissue tolerance to a little bit deeper ranges, and kind of pushes them into a couple deeper ranges of motion, and they start performing a little bit better. So I'm going to disagree with a lot of standard progressions by saying this, but there is no set progression to a squat. There is no set progression to a deadlift. We can have our basics, which air squat, goblet squat, front squat, back squat, overhead squat. We can go through those simple progressions, but at the end of the day, you also got to remember that they're not going to fit everybody. It's just something for you to think about. If you're stuck in one thing, stuck in an air squat, trying to perfect the air squat, maybe try loading it up a little bit. It could be a goblet squat, it could be a back squat, front squat. Not heavy, but being able to load a little bit will help you get into some of those end ranges of motion. So this one's just kind of a little bit of a word vomit because it struck me while I was sitting at a stoplight. But hopefully you can find some value in that, is that if you're stuck in a certain progression, it's okay. Try something a little different, load it up. And until next time, we'll see you in the passenger seat.